Hi there, and welcome to the audio commentary for Willard. My name is Nathaniel Thompson from Mondo Digital, and I am thrilled to be sitting here today with Willard himself, Bruce Davison.
How are you? Good to see you, Darren. Whoop, there he is. Willard, that's me.
So this is a film that's been a long time coming back on home video. It's literally been decades since you've been able to get your hands on this film, even though it was an absolute monster hit back when it came out.
It was just one of those rare films that disappeared like it was written in snow. And I've had more people ask me over the years, what happened? Why can't I get a copy of it? And now finally, here it is. Elsa Lanchester. She'd say, Elsa Lanchester, Burt Lancaster. Get it straight.
So now this was near the start of your career, and already you're working with some pretty major directors. I mean, you come off a film with Frank Perry, and here you are with Daniel Mann. How did you look into that?
I exactly. I lucked into it. I was 19 and too stupid to know anything else. And there are so many great character actors in this film that Danny brought in that are from, things I grew up on. Joan Shawley with all the films that Billy Wilder did, and Michael Dante, and really terrific actors, a whole bunch of them. John Myers.
I should mention the score you're hearing here. It's sort of a really nice, rich old Hollywood score by Alex North.
Who did East of Eden.
Right. And he has a Danny Mann connection through The Rose Tattoo, which is one of his most famous scores.
Right, with Burt.
So now, actually, Mann has a reputation for being a very great sort of ladies director. He'd actually directed 3 women to Best Actress Oscars, which would be Liz Taylor for Butterfield 8, of course, Anna Mignani for Rose Tattoo.
And I'll Cry Tomorrow.
Yeah, and of course, Shirley Booth, Come Back Little Sheba as well, and I'll Cry Tomorrow. And so... What was he like as an actor's director? I mean, was he as great as they say?
He was the most enthusiastic director I've ever worked with. I mean, he was just bubbling over with stories and energy, and he just... I've never met a man that had more joie de vivre and, a will of really just conveying everything he could to you. Sometimes that was overwhelming.
So now, did he ever talk about this being considered a horror film? Because if you look at it, it's really not a horror movie till maybe the last, 15, 20 minutes.
Well, based on Ratman's notebooks, there's the house that's right on Lucerne in Wilshire, this house. It's still there.
Yep.
They still shoot in it. And it's a great house. It was owned by a man named Dr. Mignoux at the time, who was a metaphysicist. And he told me that it was originally the home of a movie star from the 20s, a woman whose ghost haunted the place. And he said she was very excited that they were making a film here and it would be successful. Great. All the banister, all this stuff is real. This isn't a set. This is all the house.
Well, this was during a period in the late 60s, early 70s. They started shifting to using real locations a lot more in films. They figured out how they could actually light them, that you didn't need to go on studios as much. So.
Right, and this was one of them. But all the rooms shot upstairs, downstairs. They built the set for the basement on us. John Myers. Jodie Gilbert. I just get sucked right into her face. It feels like I was being drowned in a giant marshmallow.
Just getting assaulted with character actors here.
Yes. And there's Elsa, my mother.
I mean, what was Elsa like? I mean, she's just sort of like one of the all-time great scene stealers, of course.
We became great friends, and I spent some time at her house. She had a flat stone on her mantelpiece that had a big nose on it, and she called it her de Gaulle stone. She had a wonderful sense of humor. And she always told me, when a director is giving you a load of codswallop, ask him if you could incorporate that into what you were doing, and then do whatever the hell you want.
It's very sound
J.
advice.
Pat O'Malley, that I remembered from in the blue hat. And sitting on the end of the purple hat is... That woman over in the far left corner is Elmira Sessions, who was an extra in It's a Wonderful Life, and I remembered her from that. But he's shoot.
So now this was kind of a change of pace for you in that you had come off of two films that were sort of these modern day sort of troubled youth stories.
Yes.
You'd done Last Summer and The Strawberry Statement, which is
Yeah.
sort of one of the great like campus unrest films of the period.
Mm-hmm.
So here you are, instead you're doing this sort of like intimate character study, really. So was that a sort of breath of fresh air at the time?
It was great. I mean, it was a wonderful script and a really, almost a cartoon. But the book that it comes from is much darker. Ratman's Notebooks. It's almost Kafkaesque in its style. And I didn't really know at the time. I didn't have enough sense to know that this is going to be a movie. I thought this was going to be a dark, dark story. But the way it was lit and everything else, it's a movie. And it's a movie that so many people identified with at the time. The kid that was lost. There's.
This is also kind of the first of, there was this whole wave of movies in the 70s about this sort of the young misunderstood kid who who uses their powers to sort of get back at everybody. Who got like Carrie, obviously, is another big one that came along years later. But you were right there at the forefront of it.
Yeah, well, it's always been that. There are like only 3 stories. I really fell down the steps then. And watch my hat. My hat gets caught too. This was just real. Yeah, well, what happened? He said, that's good. I like accidents. You lose your hat. You went to it. And this is my meeting, my first meeting with Socrates and family.
I should also mention, since you brought up Ratman's Notebooks, the movie was actually announced under that title in the trades when they were first casting it.
I remember I was at the Cannes Film Festival and I saw it announced there that they were going to make it. They were calling it Ratman's Notebooks, and I thought, that's an interesting title. I always thought that should have been the title.
I wonder if it would have done the same amount of business with that title. I guess we'll never know. But,
you never know. I never know. A lot of Mort Briskin and Chuck Pratt had been making films for years, and they knew how to release it and how to, who would go and see it. And I knew nothing of that stuff. I just thought, oh, I'm an artiste, So, but those guys were in the business. They knew what they were doing.
Right.
And it was one of the most successful films of the year.
Yeah, they really loved trumpeting the fact, if you look at the trade ads after it came out, they loved promoting the fact that it was outgrossing Love Story at the box office.
Yeah.
Which,
now, this is all real, too. This was built into the house, this chair that goes up, and the director and everybody else just worked it right into the story.
And they later had a little homage to that in Gremlins. You remember?
Yeah, yes. Well, a lot of stuff came afterwards, but I loved the stairway and everything else. This house really did have a spirit onto itself then.
What do you remember actually being cast in the film? Do you remember going on your audition, or what the
Yes,
process was?
I auditioned for it, and I did the tear 'em up scene that comes later for the director, and they all were very happy. And then they took me out to Burbank to meet Mo DeCesso. He opened up his garage, and there were 600 rats in there, and he took a big one the size of a bunny, put it on my shoulder. It sniffed my ear, and I smiled, and the director said, okay, your co-star likes you. You got the part.
And Mo was one of the sort of the biggest animal trainers in Hollywood at the time. Him and his wife, Nora, was she involved a lot with?
Yes, they both were. And I worked with him years later when he did a dog in Far From Home, Story of Yellow Dog up in Canada.
Now, did he give you any tips on how to act with the rats, like any do's or don'ts? I know they use peanut butter, obviously, is a big...
It was sort of flying by night. You can't train a rat, You can get them to go for a sound for peanut butter, but, it was... So many of these shots later on were 30, 40 takes. But Elsa, I just loved her so much. I had a wonderful shot of her doing Bride of Frankenstein from the top of the stairs. And this watches... There you go. She's so great. Oh, just kill your mother. Oh, God, she was so eclectic. There was no one like her.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. So many people in this film seem to be cast because they have such great voices. You know, I mean, obviously Elsa's one of the greats. And
Well,
Ernie and
Danny cast so many great people from, you know, the 40s and the 50s and all kinds of people. Later on, you'll meet Joan Shawley, who plays Ernie's secretary, and she was always big in the Billy Wilder films, and she was sort of the head of the band at you know, in Some Like It Hot.
Sweet Sue.
This is the real backyard of this place. It was just perfect.
So now, were you a big movie fan at the time you were casting this? I mean, were you sort of awestruck that...
I was awestruck with everybody I was working with. I thought all of these, I've always loved character actors. They've been, you know, the bread and butter for me, more so than stars. I always find people that I know, because when I first came to town, I lived in an apartment that Simon Oakland would come and go to. And my agent said to me, you know, be like Simon Oakland. He can go into any bar in the world and somebody will buy him a drink because they think they went to school with him. And here we are coming up to the office. Meet a lot more people.
It's just the dreariest work environment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The walls are perfect. And the hair. There's Sandra.
Yeah, Sandra.
Fell in love with Sandra Locke. Who wouldn't?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is really early in her career. It was after Hard as a Lonely Hunter.
Yes, she had just come in after Hard as a Lonely Hunter.
Yeah. So, I mean, what was she like at the time?
She was just a dear, sweet, loving woman, and I did. I fell in love with her. We dated for quite a while. At the time, we did another film together years later, but we've remained friends over the years.
I mean, at least on screen, maybe because of her eyes and her voice, but she always just has this sort of fragility about her, like you always want to...
Who wouldn't fall in love with her? I mean, you know...
Yeah, I mean, Cameron just adores her. But yeah, for some reason, the carpet in his office just sticks with me every time I watch this film.
Well, this is so much like when my father used to work selling light fixtures, you know, and the walls make me cringe.
Yeah. I mean, like, you can almost smell
He's got a
the
sign
office.
on this desk there, say, do unto others before they do unto you. It was sort of hidden there. My hair is great. Looks like a rat shit on it already.
So, obviously, I want to get some Ernie Borgnine stories from you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious, did he ever tell... After this came out, he did an interview where he said that he had already had experience with rats when he was doing the Wild Bunch down in Mexico.
Right.
Did he ever tell you anything about that? That I guess he had rats swarming around him all the time when they were...
A few stories he told me about that, but... What happened was one ran up his pant leg, and he was just not happy at all about that. But Ernie,
like during the finale, I think he actually got bit, and they had to give him like a tetanus shot. I think when he got nibbled a little bit.
Well, he was, you know, he was a little more scared than I was of him because I didn't have the previous experience. But that's because I'm an idiot child here in this. I didn't really know anything. I just know here I am working with Marty and
so now, had you you'd been acting, of course, quite a bit before this. Had you ever like held down an actual desk job? I mean, did you have anything to?
Well, I used to, like I say, I used to work with my father's light fixtures and do invoices and stuff.
Like in the office?
I ran for the Hills. He was a manufacturer's representative for light fixtures, and I thought, I ain't going this way.
So now your star rats here. I mean, Ben and Socrates, of course. You know, they're real, you know, quite the screen presences here. What were the rats like in person?
They were lethargic. Didn't do what they were told. Everything took 30 shots. To get this shot working took all day. To get them to run down this. And then, you know, editing. It was all done. There was no CGI for any of these. When they run upstairs, we had upside down stairs and just poured them down the upside down stairs. I mean, there were all kinds of tricks and stuff they used, but they were basically like the rats that you see in the in the pet store. In fact, I dated a girl years later, casting director, and she had 2 children, 2 boys. And we came home one night, and she said, "Oh, my kids have rats. This is Ben, and this is Socrates. Take them out." And we were a little tipsy, and I was holding one, and it slipped off my shoulder and fell into the jaws of the cat that was waiting at my feet, that then ran through the cat door.
Oh, no.
So that was a real guilt trip that happened.
Oh.
So I had to buy the kids a color TV. Now this is, this is real rat acting. They do not like this. Okay, now how's this going to get started? Oh man, uh-oh.
Now, one story that was told about this and about Ben also is that they had ASPCA.
Here, these guys knew to get the hell out of there
yeah.
now. That was real acting, but it was set up like that. Okay, let's get out of here. This is wet. We do not like this. Come on, you can make it. There's always a dumb one.
So, I guess they had ASPCA guys were like on the set.
Yes, all the time. No rat was hurt in this.
Oh, I've heard on this and Ben, like apparently the sound guys were kind of mischievous, and when the ASPCA guy wasn't looking to get the sounds they wanted, they would kind of just give like a little pinch to the rat tail.
No, the rats don't make sounds.
Oh,
they didn't. That's all added in later. Oh, this is my carrot acting.
Is this your business?
Yes, I have some business. Elsa said, "Threaten me with the carrot. That ought to be interesting."
I did it.
That's me overacting. So.
I didn't think they were going to drown, so I got a stick.
I mean, do you ever go back and look at your films and think about how you would do things differently now?
I have a hard time watching my films because I was always overacting as a kid, trying to do more than I needed to. But I learned from all the greats like Elsa and everybody else. Just be there, just do it.
And it's interesting how many of your films sort of, until recently, have essentially sort of were kind of lost. I mean, Strawberry Statement was also out of circulation for a long time until, a few years ago.
And last summer.
Back. And last summer is still stuck, in the Warner archives. They're still trying to get that one straightened out. So.
Michael Dante.
Yeah.
A lot of Native Americans and great B villains. He was great.
So we'll talk about when the film came out a little bit later, but after this, what direction did you want to take your career? I mean, I know you'd had, for example, Jerusalem was a really big
I wanted to work with Nicole Williamson and do a great film, and Donald Pleasance in Jerusalem, which
was released as the Jerusalem File.
Yeah, nobody ever saw that. That disappeared.
That's another one that's gone.
You never know. And this, in the meantime, while I was in Jerusalem shooting that film, this took off, and I didn't get to have any part of the publicity that came with this when it came out. Yeah. I know Ernie did a lot.
Well, I do hope Jerusalem File gets resurrected someday. I think it's stuck within GM somewhere, so you never know.
Oh, is it?
It could pop up.
Yeah. Here's Jody. She was so great. Just went she just smothers me every shit.
I told her I'd stay here until you got home. Now don't worry. I made her a little custard. Would you like some? I don't mind.
Yeah, I do love the way that in all his films how Daniel Mann sort of like he puts his actors in these tight spaces. The way he that's always like a power play where he puts the actors.
Danny was so prepared with everything. Every shot was planned out the way he wanted. More than anything, I look back on working with Danny Mann as fun. I remember what fun I had with him because everything tickled him. It was always over the top. He always wanted to push things farther than I wanted to push in at the time. I was always sort of reticent, I thought I was still doing Shakespeare. And he just kept pushing me and pushing me. And
you always kind of forget just how short her part is in this film. She's one of them.
Elsa, but she's
I mean, she's
You know,
so great.
she's so memorable.
Yeah.
She always is. She's so eclectic.
Always been a good boy, Willard. It's just that I'm alone here most of the time, and I'm worried so.
So did you ever see Ben when it came out, the sequel?
No, never did. I have a hard time seeing anything, and I don't watch any of this stuff I do anymore. Yeah. It's really, I guess it's sort of like Katharine Hepburn saying, "Who wants to see yourself rot?" It's kind of like that, you know.
I think even Woody Allen never watches his films when they're done.
I watch pieces here and there, occasionally, but once or two.
Sick of lying here without my TV.
But so after Willard came out, I mean, was there anything you were looking for project-wise? Because there's kind of a gap. I mean, Short Eyes obviously was a big turning point in your career a few years later.
I forget what I did after this. Ozana's Raid.
Yeah, Ozana's Raid. Yeah.
Ozana's Raid, working with Burt Lancaster.
Yeah.
Came after that.
And of course, Mame.
Mame, yes. Well, Mame was not Pauline Kael's favorite.
No. I'm sure it was a very colorful set, though.
I met Pauline Kael years later, and she said, "You really looked stupid in that hat." So thanks, Pauline. That was great.
Never wanted to
Try better next time.
Lesson time.
Queenie. That's Queenie.
Come on, it's lesson time.
Now, a lot of this stuff we'd improvise. Because, like I say, you know, you work with a rat, and we just work with stuff. And what are we going to make work in a close-up? How are we going to make this look like a scene between two and a tight two? I'm kind of bored. Says the rat.
It's like, yeah, where's the peanut butter? So now, you mentioned off camera earlier that this film had a bit of a damper on your love life because you were so heavily kissy with the rats. But
yeah, you kiss a rat, you play a tight two with a rat like that, you're not going to get a lot of, you know, movies with Kim Darby after that.
But what's interesting is that this movie has like a really huge female fan base when it came out. I mean, young women went to go see this movie over and over and over and over.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I never noticed.
Yeah, like that was the main concern when it came out. That Cinerama was really concerned that women were afraid of rats and they wouldn't come see the film. And it was the exact
Right.
opposite.
Well, the important thing, I think, what makes this film work is I'm not a dark character in this. If you were going to cast a darker character in this and make it a Kafka movie, I wouldn't have cast me.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what makes it work, because as a movie, it carries all this dark stuff, and you can go with it. You can identify with it.
Yeah. Well, if it's someone a little like Elisha Cook Jr. or someone who played this part, it would have been a very different film. You know.
Yeah. Kind of what makes it work.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I mean, most of the film is actually this kind of sort of sweet, oddball character study.
Yeah. It's a goofy movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, even though this got a PG rating, from what I understand, some of the executives were kind of freaked out by the death scenes in it. I think, one of the executives wanted to cut down Borgnine's death scene, which is kind of unimaginable. It's so great.
I got to tell you a story here. I used to keep M&Ms in my pocket. Just a little sugar rush every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe this isn't it. No. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I was in the back. I didn't.
Yeah, this is it.
What do you do there?
Just sit.
You can't just sit out back for an hour doing nothing.
Yes, I can.
So anyway,
It isn't
You
good
said
for
I had
you
an
to sit
M&M
out
in
there
there.
alone and brood so much. What do you think about her? Oh, the pilot light is out on the heater again.
and every once in a while, I'd have an M&M or a piece of thing.
Willard, what's that in your pocket? There's something in your pocket.
And then one day, shooting this scene, I tried a piece of M&M that didn't taste sweet.
And you never ate M&Ms again.
Never again. I haven't to this day. That's not true. You get over your traumas when you're young.
But I'm sure you always have a little thing go off in your head every time you eat one, though. Every time you eat an M&M from that point on, you're like,
well, I don't carry rats around in my pocket like I used to either, you know.
Yep.
Now, a lot of this stuff is improvised. I'm trying to keep them all in the wagon. Nobody get out. Okay, one got out. All of this stuff is like, okay, you've heard of herding cats. Herding rats is kind of similar. Okay.
How often did rats get lost when they were shooting, like on the set?
Well, I think they're still running around at Paramount. Or
Smart.
I mean, I think the decision to play Willard like an oversized kid is a lot of what makes this film work. Was that something that you decided on deliberately as soon as you saw the script, or was that something that you played Willard as sort of this like innocent, sort of oversized child in a way? Some of his mannerisms?
Yeah. I always considered him an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Kind of just never really was an adult at all. Never part of the real world. Never. This is great. That's all improvised, and you never know how long it takes for the rats to run for the peanut butter in the briefcase. But that's 30 takes. There's Joan Shawley, the band leader in Some Like It Hot.
Yep. Sweet Sue herself. So now Ernie Borgnine, I mean, obviously he's a very bigger than life intimidating screen presence. I mean, what was he like in person?
He was great. Best advice I ever got from him. Don't ever go to bed angry at your wife. If you got to stay up for 3 days straight to work it out, work it out. Served me well over the years. Can't always live up to it sometimes, but he was great.
Have you ever had to stay up that long?
Pardon?
Have you ever had to stay up that long?
Oh, yeah. Not 3 days, maybe, but, close. But he was wonderful. When I saw him a year before he died, he was 94. And he turned to his wife, he said, "Honey, this is the young boy I did Willard with." And I, believe me, was not a young boy. But this is what we remember. We have said, you do stuff like this together and you become great friends. And then you don't see each other for decades. And then you pick up where you left off, sometimes mid-sentence.
Yeah. It's part of the whole acting family thing,
He was a great guy. He really was. Not a big fan of Ethel Merman, but...
It's also smart casting because it's such an utterly loathsome character, but because it's Borgnine, you don't really hate him that much. It's
exactly.
It's kind of fun.
Once again, Ernie was always part cartoon.
Yeah.
He was always bigger than life. And and he's great to smack down a sniveling kid like this. Oh, yeah.
That house is much too big for you. Me too, for that matter. But I can afford it. You haven't got a father.
So good.
And when you're doing this, it's just great. I mean, you just love it. I mean, Barbara Rush said to me one time, "Darling, it's only real when they say action." And so many times in life, you have an opportunity like this. It really is. It's bigger than life. And you're thinking, even when you're doing it like this is great. I'm you know, I don't know how good it's ever going to be, but I'm having the time of my life working with these heroes.
Yeah.
Half of my customers haven't even answered.
I mean, you've obviously had an incredibly long, fruitful career yourself as an actor. But looking back, I mean, what do you think what is the secret to having a long career? You know, to staying vibrant in the business.
The ability to take rejection, to realize you're going to get 10,000 no's for every yes you get, and every once in a while a yes will come along, and you got to not take it personally and realize that, you know, you're not Jeff Bridges. You don't have the shoulders. You're a scrawny kid in this, and he's going to get that other part. Even though you think you'd be better at it, you know, it's just the way of the world. You just, and try to learn and not overact like I'm doing here so much as you grow in the business.
So, I mean, what you're calling overacting, though, I think in a way it kind of fits the film. It's this sort of...
Yeah,
it's
well,
almost
I'm playing, like I say, I'm playing a cartoon,
Yeah,
too.
I mean, it's kind of it's a stylized
And
film anyway.
Danny would keep pushing me in that direction. And I fought him a lot on it because I thought I was making it. Once again, I wasn't looking through the lens. I didn't quite know the big picture that he was going through. I didn't know this was a cartoon in a way, that things were lit this big. I thought it was dark and creepy and, you know, like I say, Kafka. But it's a comedy. It's and that's what made this film work. Really looking back on it, you try to make it the other way, wouldn't work. Would be sugar is a spice to honey.
Yeah. What, I mean,
I love this. This is fun.
Yeah.
This was fun. Okay, go ahead, boys.
You're so cute.
But even the setup of the way he set the shot up for this and everything else. When I watched the film with an audience, they just roared. Oh boy, here we go. What the hell is that? Oh shit, what's going on? You know, every crappy Beverly Hills party that everybody to love seeing this happen. And the audience is really with him.
I mean, since you saw this with an audience when it came out, I mean, what do you think it is that people loved about it? It sort of appealed to like the inner anarchist.
Yes, it's the anarchist story, the kid that's the fish out of water that's, you know, really... And the big grotesque monsters you get the better of all the time.
Yeah.
Oppressed. All right, this I love. This I love. This last little line here.
Happy anniversary.
Must have been 200 of them. And
And you should have seen this hero. Up on a chair, squealing like a fag.
I hope you're insured for the damage.
Right. Evil Ernie.
Yeah.
Here you go.
So when this came out, do you remember? Obviously, you were out in Israel for when it first opened. But do you remember anything about when they promoted this? Because they really tried to push this as like a youth film. I mean, they took out a lot of commercials on.
Well, everything was a youth film then. It was all this. When I came to town, the Strawberry Statement.
Right.
It was all college revolution films. And that was my introduction here. That and the fact that my agent was burying his client Sharon Tate, so I came out in the Manson years. So. Those were the two driving forces of Hollywood at the time. Youth movies and fear. Fear of hippies.
Yeah. But it's interesting that when Cinerama was booking all the TV spots for the film, the 3 shows they went after like far more than the others. It was Mod Squad, all the Dick Clark shows, and Room 222. Those were like the sweet spots, and I guess it was the right way to go.
Well, at the time, you know, it was also we're right at the beginning of the era of, you know, my neighbor Steven Spielberg, and there was a whole thing just starting to happen down at the beach at Malibu, where, you know, Scorsese and all of those people were just beginning, and they're the people that I wanted to be with, and I felt I was making a cartoon with this in a way. But looking back on it now, I'm so fond that I had this opportunity. But it kept me from a lot of the great art films that I thought I was going to get to star in.
Yeah. Well, this period was interesting, too, because this is right when sort of the old studio system was starting to collapse, and they were like selling off all the real estate of the lots and everything like that. So were you really aware of what was going on? There was this huge upheaval happening?
Not at the time. I thought I was, but, you know, I didn't know that my neighbor was going to make something. He would say things like, well, I'm going to make something that nobody's ever seen before. And I thought, all right, Stephen, good luck with that. So you never knew, but that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, within like 5 years, everything changed completely.
Yeah. Well, there was a beach house. There's Easy Riders, Raging Bulls. Great book to read.
Yeah, fantastic book.
Peter Biskin. And they all would gather at this beach house in Malibu. Margot Kidder and Jennifer Salt had a beach house. And all the people that were going to make films were there then. It was Scorsese and Bogdanovich and Steven and George Lucas and John Milius shooting off a shotgun in the ocean. And they all talked about, and Paul Schrader, and they'd all talk about Michael Crichton, all talk about the films they were going to make. Hadn't made one. Only this one guy named Coppola had made a film.
Yeah. I wonder what that could have been.
You're a good, yeah.
We've done some horror. He was like a Roger Corman guy before that.
Yeah,
So
well, they were all out of Roger, a lot of Roger Corman.
Yeah.
This is,
what was the general environment like as an actor at the time? I mean, was it
What?
in the early '70s? I mean, being an actor, what was it? I mean, what was it like? I mean, is this sort of like free for all in Hollywood, or, you know, they're trying all these new things?
well, for me, it was like being Pinocchio on Pleasure Island. So I hadn't a clue. I just, you know, was going with the flow and being a, you know, kid in my 20s who didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Willard, you don't know how much there is to do.
Jodie Gilbert was so good in this. She's,
After this is over, you should take a week off. Take a rest.
I kind of like the way how you're sort of internalizing all sort of, it's like anger and grief and shock at the same time. How you're just sort of like, it's building and building, you know?
Now that your mother's gone.
Get out. Just get out. You leave me alone. I'll take care of my mother. You get out. Get out. You just get out.
So the guy who owned the house, did he ever see the film? Did you ever hear anything?
I never saw afterwards, you know. Like I say, when the film came out, I was in Jerusalem. I was shooting a film in the old city.
I mean, I assume he knew they were going to be, you know, rad
But he
actors.
told me at the beginning, he said, this is going to be successful.
He's right.
Madame says it, you know.
Did he ever say who the actress was, the ghost?
He probably told me at the time, and it lost in the mists of time. Now it's disappeared. The house is still there. It's right across from the Scottish Temple on Lucerne and Wilshire. I still drive by it occasionally.
You know, the funny thing is, a lot of this actually could work as a silent film. Since you mentioned the blessing of the silent actress ghost, but it is very it's such a raw story. You know, it's a lot of it's done through these.
Well, that's Danny. That's a great filmmaker that's made all those films from the 50s and stuff. And
I don't want to seem precipitous, Willard, but
he's John Myers, who's a terrific actor. I got to meet his daughter, who is still a friend of mine. All these years later, we've known each other for, God, what's it, 30, 40 years now.
unfortunately died with her.
You mean she left me nothing?
Not much, just the equity on the house. Well, you could sell it and pay off the mortgage. Buy yourself a small house somewhere else. And something left over for the future.
That's why I love how like utterly Los Angeles this film feels. You know, it's just so seeped into it all the way through. There's no question where it was shot.
Yeah.
You mean my mother didn't
It really does represent a time and a period, too. It was a real Hollywood movie from this period.
But you might need it to take care of your movie.
But even now, if you drive through some neighborhood, well, for example, where this house is, or even some neighborhoods in Beverly Hills, still have that kind of feeling when you drive through them.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're sort of frozen.
Yeah, it is frozen in time.
Like if you drive by the house where they shot, you know, Baby Jane, for example, it's still the same. You can
Right.
just- I mean, if you're on the sidewalk in front of it, you feel
Yeah.
like you're in the late, you know, the 60s.
Yeah. I remember shooting this day. I was so sick. I had a... There she is. I had like 103 fever this day. I was sick as a dog.
Just call old Dad. We'll talk, huh?
Well, it didn't show.
That's a real beauty, boy. Yes, sir. Yeah. Moons and everything.
So what kind of acting training did you have before you came, before these three
Well,
films?
I started as an art major. There's my eating my M&Ms again. I started at Penn State University. I started as an art major and got involved in theater there. And then when I realized that was what I was going to do, I ended up in NYU in School of the Arts, which became the Tisch program years later. So I went there for a number of years, and from there I went to carried a spear in Lincoln Center with the Rep Company and did a lot of theater, and then did my first film in New York, which was last summer with Frank and Eleanor Perry, and Barbara Hershey and Richard Thomas and Catherine Burns, and then came out to Hollywood. And I would go back to New York a lot to do theater. And finally, when things started drying up around 1980, I went back and did a lot of theater there, and sort of came back as a character actor.
Yeah, with a vengeance.
Yeah.
What was it about? How did you get the acting bug? What was it about it that appealed to you that made you decide that's what you wanted to do?
Well, somebody else had these great lines that I could say, and I no longer felt like a murmuring idiot. I could think of, Shakespeare, the will is infinite, the execution confined, the desire is boundless, and the act a slave to limit. Great lines in college.
Yeah.
But I, being poor, have only my dreams, and I've laid my dreams at your feet. Tread soft, for you tread on my dreams. What great stuff coming out of the mouth of a kid. Oh, wow, you're hot. You're cool, man. That's why I got into acting, to meet girls.
Did it work?
Oh, yeah, kind of overworked itself a little bit around this period of my life. I sort of washed up, shipwrecked on Malibu for a while.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yes, that's true.
But I mean, like, Last Summer is a pretty big film to sort of be your first one right out of the gate. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
that was.
Was that you know, even today, it's a pretty strong film.
Yes,
when you look at it.
It was.
I mean,
It was indeed.
I mean, do you remember?
I
what
just
it was like?
lucked out.
Yeah.
I just went in and auditioned for Frank Perry and got the job.
I mean, what was Frank like? I mean, he was sort of like
He
he was one of the great.
He was wonderful, effusive. Again, a lot like Danny. They were two great filmmakers that had a great sense of passion about everything they did. A great sense of. And Eleanor was the writer. She was the great writer. And it worked for those opportunities. I was given my great opportunities when I was young and really didn't know what to do with it. You know, I was too young to really appreciate the great gifts that were being given to me at that age.
I mean, when you get a project, I mean, for example, when Short Eyes came back around and you know, sort of reinvigorated your career a bit as on the big screen. I mean, do you have an inkling that was going to be a big turning
Short
point
Eyes?
for you? Yeah.
No, Short Eyes wasn't a big thing. Nobody saw Short Eyes.
Well, but it critically though. I mean, not
Critically,
commercially.
it was very successful.
Yeah.
First time Pauline Kael had something nice to say. But
Yeah, I mean, it's
you
not
know,
it's not a
film
blockbuster
one,
type
not
film.
a blockbuster. Nobody saw it.
Yeah.
It disappeared for years. It's only grown in stature years later.
Yeah, I mean, now it's a classic.
Yeah, you know, it's sort of the grandfather of Oz and all of those prison movies. But at the time, it wasn't. But this was. This at the time was, you know, this is making it to Broadway for me. It played at the Criterion.
I mean, at what point did you realize how huge this film was? Because, you know, you come back into the country and Willard is open and suddenly it's just this, it plays and plays and plays
Yeah.
for years.
Well, it was big, and it was, but I was really at a stage right then where I was just going to do stuff I wanted to do, and the only things that I was being offered were, you know, rabid bunny movies and, you know, monsters or man-eating plant movie. After this is, I mean, you know, you kiss these rats and you don't get to kiss a girl after that for quite a long time. So things are weird. They just get typecast. But I really have nothing to complain about. I always had an opportunity to do something. I was very lucky.
Well, it's interesting that when this film came out, I mean, I was looking through some of the Cinerama ad campaigns they worked on before the final one that we know. It was just, you know, it was like with like, you know, rats making, you know, different shapes and spelling out the title and stuff. And what they went with was it's mainly your face.
Yeah.
Is what's on the poster and on the billboards and everything. So, I mean, what's that like? You know, you do this little movie and suddenly it's like, blam, you're all over the country.
Yeah.
On this ginormous billboard.
Well, I always thought that's the way it should be.
It's what everybody wants. But it's
You
like,
know,
that's got to be a bit of a shock the first time you see it. You know?
yes, I guess it was, but I was young enough where I was kind of oblivious to all of that. I didn't know what was a career. I never really thought a lot about my career. I never did. I still don't. I just sort of go with the flow, because if you think too much about it, it'll break your heart, or it'll get you to, you know, because things are a river. You never know how they're going to flow. I'm very lucky looking back on my life now. And the next film I did was with Robert Aldrich. He said, you don't want to be a leading man. You just, you know, you'll be washed up at 30 after 6 pictures. Be a character actor. Do supporting roles. Play the villains and the victims and the doctors and the lawyers and the Indian chiefs. You can raise a family in this town. And that's not what I wanted, but it's what happened. And, you know, it's like 200 films later.
I take you home, but I have to stay here this afternoon.
I think Ozana's Raid was probably the biggest film, I guess, probably for you that decade, I guess. Wouldn't it have been?
No, Ozana's Raid wasn't a great hit either.
No, I mean, like the scale of it. I mean, it was a pretty big film.
It was a big Western
Yeah.
at the time, and once again, a
Yeah, I mean, it didn't
big
gross
classically film, but this Willard was the grosser.
Yeah, not
this
box
was
office
the
wise.
big box office
Yeah.
film.
As far as like a prestige studio film, you know, Ozana's Raid was, you know, that was a pretty big deal at the time it was being made.
Well, it was, but at the same time, people really didn't get it as much, and it was about Vietnam.
Yeah.
film was really about Vietnam, and nobody made that connection. And it was a very dark Western, and people weren't really...
Just about.
There hadn't been a lot of those.
I spoiled your new car.
My car?
Yeah, the westerns around that period were not terribly traditional. So.
No, and it was an allegory. You know, Lozano's Raid was an allegory, using all of John Ford's cliched characters to tell a story about getting deeper and deeper into the big muddy, and everybody gets killed.
Yeah. That's kind of an older specialty, though. His stories were always about something else than what you thought they were.
Yeah.
he could go very, very cynical.
Here's our kitty.
Aw.
Uh-oh. So this is...
Her name's Chloe. She's a present for you. I couldn't bear thinking of you all alone, Willard. And, well, cats are really very good company.
I'd have to say that the first
See
time
my jacket over my shoulder. I'm trying to be so cool and suave here, you know. This is my Troy Donahue look.
Why don't we drop her off?
I'd say I'm glad this is like one of the rare horror films where the cat actually doesn't die.
Yes, that's true.
That's even by this point, it's such a cliche. If the cat shows up in a horror movie, you know it's going to be dead within 10
the
minutes.
cat escapes.
Yeah. And hopefully it goes off to a happy home. You don't know for sure, but...
Right. My big date scene. Rats in the briefcase.
Do you remember how they got the cat to do that?
I can't remember, catnip or food or something. Probably catnip.
Yeah.
Once again, you know, there's no CGI or faking any of this stuff. It's all wait for the animals to do their thing, and we'll try to play it as it lays.
Was Mo also responsible for the cat? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sell a house for taxes.
Actually, something I was curious about in some interviews that you were giving, a little while after this came out in later years, you mentioned that you wanted to star in a screenplay called Retreat.
Oh, yes, that's a screenplay I've written. It's now called Recall. But it's a screenplay I have that I would love to get made someday. Boys Military School in Miami during the Bay of Pigs invasion, and a period piece.
It sounded like in around 1978, it sounded like it had a good shot at being made. What happened?
Well, it did. Universal, and actually, they ended up making I think the Lords of Discipline instead. But they had the two. Tom Mount was in there then, and at that time it got close. But they went another way at that time. But years after that, I rewrote it with Carol O'Connor.
Oh, really?
And Carol developed it into two TVs. One was a pilot called The Banana Company, and the other became PFC Sharky that he did with Don Rickles.
Interesting. Well, hopefully someday they'll make the original movie.
Well, I would hope so. It's a good. I think it's good, but it's just one of those things, that never been able to get a deal on, and now it's difficult.
Yeah.
This was a creepy shot. Mm-hmm. Now the rats are there's a lot of them. But once again, this is an improv scene. Mm-hmm. It's like they set up a lot of different shots there.
Now look, get this straight.
But if you watch...
Stop it. Now I am the boss here.
I love this because this is all real.
Yeah. It'd be kind of thrilling having a starring role where you're basically monologuing for half the film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I'm just sort of acting with...
Look, nothing. The mortgage is driving me nuts. And you're driving me nuts. You're worse than a bunch of rabbits.
But watch this shot. This is great. I love this.
Come on. Maybe the last one. Come on.
So you're pretty adept at handling them.
Yep.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right.
So do you remember, was there only one rat playing Ben and one rat?
No, there were a number of rats playing each.
I know in the sequel
There was
they had
one
both
rat
Bens.
that sat on my shoulder a lot, and that was Big Ben. I'd always keep him there to keep people away from me during lunch. I didn't want to talk to. But there were ones that I would talk to, ones that would move, and then other ones that would do action. There were a lot of different stand-ins for Ben and Socrates.
Because I believe most had sort of his rats were sort of partitioned by their certain skills. So you'd have like those.
Yeah,
these are the
yeah.
rats
He
that
had a
are
whole
actually
garage
responsible.
full of them out in Burbank or something, you know. They all had their own trailer, refrigerated. This is cool.
They're going to take the house away.
Little rats in bikinis coming in every once in a while, you know.
Little tiny disco balls down there.
Yeah, that's right. It was working into that era. Staying alive.
Just a moment, please.
I just wonder he kept them all straight. I mean, that's a certain skill, you know.
Yeah. This is Pat O'Malley. I love Pat. He was, I remember him from the Musketeers days, you know, Spinning Marty. He was Marty's butler.
And another great voice.
Yeah, who are dead.
When they want you, or they take their business somewhere else. Now, what were you saying?
I thought maybe you could lend me the money so I could pay my taxes, and then you'd let me pay you back.
Willard, what you're saying makes no sense at all. There's no reason why you should get deeper and deeper into debt. Now, you just sit down there and listen to me. You'd better sell the house, Willard. It's the only...
See, everybody else makes a lot more sense than I do in this movie. I am an 8-year-old idiot.
$500.
But again, it's all about the way that it's directed, though, because he always makes Willard. You always feel like you're in Willard's place.
Well, I have no friends in the world except my rats, you know. Everybody's out to take my house, take my life. Mom's dead. She was a pain in the ass anyway. And now, oh, pick up. I love it where that bottom lip says, pick up.
Did you have any luck
Luck with what?
with the money?
So, I mean, since you're surrounded by all these sort of older character actors, I mean, how much did you hang out with them when you weren't shooting? I mean, like, did you guys go to dinner together?
Well, I mean, yeah, we all hung out together like through lunch and everything, but we were shooting 14, 15-hour days, you know, all through this. You go home, you're exhausted. Come out.
Be delivered. But you
And
gotta remember,
this is the babyface killer from the 50s.
Alice, Mr. Spencer's going to Europe tomorrow afternoon.
He's wonderful.
He's stiff. And listen, he needs some cashier's checks and some cash. Now drop a check for $8,000, take it down to the bank.
Yes, Mr. Martin.
And here is Mr. Spencer's personal check. Put that in the firm's account.
Right, but the bank will be closed before I get there.
Well, call them. They'll stay open for me.
He was always the gangster that say, stick it up and put your...
Yeah.
Hell of a lot of cash to be carrying around. Well, stick it in my money belt. Always like to have some real cash available.
Talking to a blind man here. aren't we?
Hey, I'd like to get a black market on those pictures.
Can you imagine having $8,000 to spend on a vacation? Maybe we could really ball it up with that kind of a bankroll, huh, Willard? Oh, you got my Rolodex. Give me Spencer's address.
Alan Baxter. That's Alan Baxter.
Did he teach you how to talk like that?
Talk like that.
No, I just had I always hated my voice, especially when I was young, especially working with Burt Lancaster. Remember the rules, Lieutenant.
What are the rules? You know,
This.
Well, I have to say you can imitate them very well, though.
Huh?
You can imitate them, all of them, very well.
Oh, yes. Well, now it's getting gravelier, but...
Yeah. You do an especially good Borgnine.
Ernie?
Yeah.
Ernie. In bed with Alan Baxter is Sherry Presnell at the time. Mm-hmm. She ended up being Danny's wife. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is Danny Mann's wife. A lot of peanut butter on this door.
Now the weird thing is, I know you said you haven't seen the remake, but in the remake they made with Christopher Glover, they switched it so Willard actually survives through the end of the movie and then dies. So
Well, that's good. I think Mort Briskin was his baby. He sort of took it. I had a great idea, but I never really got to him before he wanted to make a kid in a song and make a sweet little thing and have all the kids come. But I thought, Willard should have been chewed up really bad, all like Quasimodo, and taking his rats to the New York subway system and just sort of going that way. Of course, that's me going dark again, But I thought that would be a way to go. I thought you could have a lot of fun in New York with a lot of rats, especially if you're pretty chewed up looking. So.
Walter, please, Walter, there's something outside the door. Please.
It's just your imagination. Well, if it'll make you feel any better.
Well, we don't know for sure that you die at the end of this movie.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. I thought there was...
Don't leave me. Come on, jump, jump.
Time for a little thievery.
Bad Willard.
This is one of my favorite lines. Borgnine says, "This place is a woodpecker's hamburger." I just love that line.
See, like even the costumes are just perfect. I mean, it's exactly what he would be wearing, his character,
Mm-hmm.
Kid's never home. What do we do with the house? Are you kidding? This is a woodpecker's hamburger. You run a bulldozer through it. And where do you get that wee bit?
So now, when you got back and Willard was out, did they ever try to get you to do any like any PR appearances for the movie?
By the time I had like 3-4 months in Israel, so by the time I got back, I think Ernie did all the Johnny Carson show and all of that. It had been open for a while, and I was never really followed into any publicity. Yeah, at my age too, I didn't know how that publicity was important about anything anyway. It was weird. I just never considered it. It was never part of my thought.
Yeah, it's funny. If you look at the newspapers when this came out, there's like Borgnine interviews all over.
Yeah, well, Ernie was here, and he caught the wave. The big thing he made a mistake of is he turned down a percentage.
Yeah.
I never had that opportunity. It was never offered to me. I was just a kid that was lucky to get a part.
I think one of the funnier campaigns they did when this came out was they actually targeted like some of the pet magazines and pet
Oh,
and
yes.
and,
Well, they sold a lot of rats.
Yeah, they did. And I guess the catch line they used was, Willard's pets will do anything for him. What will your pet do for you?
You, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Empowering a lot of 8-year-olds with their rats. I'm not going to bed, Mommy.
I mean, like over the years, have you had any like fans come up and tell you like, oh, this movie made me like a rat lover?
Oh yeah, people have come up to me all the time, mostly, and then they said, "What happened to the film?" Haven't been able to find the film since, and it hasn't. It's there's a couple of VHS floating around here, but the fact that they are now releasing this on Blu-ray is, I think, going to make a lot of people happy.
And people should realize that it's not because of lack of demand, because this movie's been asked for decades.
Yeah.
It's been sort of stuck in legal limbo.
It's been legal limbo, and no real prints have been around that they found.
So yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of films that kind of get stuck in this, especially if a major studio doesn't own it outright, a lot of films kind of get stuck in this twilight zone where, it's hard to get them back out.
Yeah. Well, that's happened with a few I've had. But this is the one that most people have said, oh, this is great. This is the scene I play with the rat. And I get him to talk to me.
All right, I'll take you to the office. But if you do one thing wrong, if you make one sound, it's the last time you go. Do you understand?
Do you know how he understands? Because I'm pushing my thumb into his stomach, and they put in the beep in afterwards. So that's a little rat abuse there, but got a good shot.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as he wasn't really hurt.
That's the same one I take to lunch with me all the time, too. I was always feeding him stuff.
Come in. You got a moment? Come in. Close the door.
I think this film made a lot of people aware that rats actually do make good pets. I mean, I know several friends who, actually have pets.
Until they start having more rats.
Yeah.
Then you're into Willard's problem.
Yeah. Well, same problem with bunnies, Just got to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
As you know, Joe, we have a nice family relationship.
It was that movie the guy had a sign out in his front yard. Free bunnies, food, or pets.
Seeing a lot of Willard.
Make a lovely stew.
Yeah. You can eat them or let them be your friends.
I should say that. I think it's wonderful.
Borgnine loved this chair.
Yeah.
He loved spinning people around in this chair.
Just exactly what do you want, Mr. Martin?
I want you to do me a favor. Help me to help Willard.
And again, it's just that man touch where you got Borgnine's just always like just hovering over everybody.
Yeah,
I can't do that.
he's a big hoverer.
Or won't.
Yeah, even though he wasn't tall.
I think you better do your own persuading, Mr. Martin.
But he lived to 94 because he was such a positive man, too. I mean, more than anything else, he loved life. He just ate it like a pizza. It was something that he always just had a great fondness for life.
Like that's why he was always one of the great TV interviewees, you know.
Was he? Yeah, I'm sure. Well, he loved everything he did. Everything he did is sort of like Harold Klorman had that. Somebody asked Harold Klorman, what's the best moment in your life? He said, this one right now, talking to you. This is the best moment. This is all I got. This is the best thing. And Ernie was like that, too. You always felt you had his full attention. He was with you. 100%.
Yeah, if you go back and watch him, just go on YouTube and watch any talk show appearance he was ever on. He always just brought it 100%.
Yeah.
Really
he was upset during the course of this at one time because Mario Puzo came to visit him on the set. He really wanted to do The Godfather, and all of that was happening about this time, too.
He would have been perfect for that.
Well, he thought so.
Yeah. He was right.
Willard? I've just been fired. I just got my notice. Alice put it on the desk.
Did you have a fight with her?
Not with her.
So, I mean, do you remember when this came out? I mean, when you saw this in the theater finally, when you got back, I mean, do you remember, did the audience sort of, what was the audience response like, and how were you treated, like, right after the film came out? Did people recognize you a lot?
Yeah. This sort of was the one that really people knew me in the hardware store, you know, which was nice.
I assume your big line at the end gets quoted to you a lot.
What?
I assume your big line at the end gets quoted to you a lot, or during Borgnine's scene gets quoted to you quite a bit.
Tear them up? Yeah.
And so here we have Socrates about to meet a fate as nasty as his namesake.
Right. It is indeed.
So, I mean, obviously, thankfully, the scene looks just fake enough where you're not too freaked out by it. Do you remember how they shot the scene with Socrates with the fake blood and all?
Yeah, they put a little blood, little red, big makeup day for Socrates. There he is. This is a part that this is a real interesting part because a lot of people said the white rat wasn't smart enough. He gets killed. But the black rat, he knows where to hide. He knows and that's where Ben became the hero of the movie.
Yep.
It was right here. He wasn't the victim. He became the hero. And I'm going to come back on you, boys.
Oh, this is still kind of hard to watch.
It is. It's still, yeah. This broke a lot of hearts.
But I mean, just from here on, the reaction shots of Ben that they got are just so good. Where he's like kind of narrowing his eyes, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you remember how they got those shots of Ben, like from here on, where he's kind of giving you these looks? You know, I mean, how did they?
Now this is a scene. I got to tell you this. This is the story I was telling. I have a scene here in which Danny Mann is saying, "I don't know what you want to think about, but I think of the Nazis," and I just went over to the toilet seats over there. I banged my head on the toilet seat. I said, "Just shoot the damn thing." He said, "That's it. Perfect reaction. That's good." And he shot it. Years later, I'm doing a film with Heck Ramsey, Richard Boone, and I'm blowing a few takes because his nose is so big, and I blow like 3 or 4 takes. Harry Morgan, who's directing at the time, looks up at me and he says, "Can I get you a toilet lid?" So stories follow always, but it was this. This was the shot. That's where he says, "Think of the Nazis."
Do you think there are any more of them?
Just whistle for me. Listen, open up the office in the morning, will you?
Would you like me to stay tonight?
But I also love how Ernest just looks more and more disheveled as the movie goes on.
Oh,
you know?
yeah, well, he's just being Mr. Hot Stuff. Used to think this was so grotesque. I think it's really pretty nice and endearing now at my age.
Well, the funny thing is, by modern workplace conduct standards, he's actually not that far removed from what goes on pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Nothing I could do.
There's the close-up that made Ben's career.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't my fault.
And I know there's a kind of a little award show they do in Hollywood for animal actors, and they actually gave Ben one.
Right.
So I just wonder which Ben got it, you know.
Well, they all got it. They were all living out in Van Nuys by the pool, you know.
They'll have to split the
A
award,
lot of
you know.
gerbils in bikinis. I don't know.
Make the big times.
We didn't see each other after this. After the last shot of this film, I sort of had it.
Were you worried at all about the old W.C. Fields saying about never work with children or animals?
Animals. I was too dumb to know any different at this time.
I mean, it's a good thing you ignored it, you know. In this case, it's a good thing you ignored it because, you know.
Your friend, Martin. Well, Martin, your friend, wants to take my house and just knock it down. Well, I won't let him.
I mean, did Danny give you any tips at all about when you're doing all these solo scenes?
He's had tips for every moment I breathed.
Yeah, was he either dial it up or take it down?
Yeah, it was always take it up. Yeah. Take it up, take it up, take it up, take it up.
Socrates is dead. Martin killed him.
See, I mean, you're going at a pretty high pitch here.
Yes, I do.
So when you, I'm curious, when you did the audition for the, for the Borgon death scene, did you do it the same way you do in the film, or did he want you to keep pushing it higher and higher? Because I mean, that scene is so intense.
I couldn't tell you. I just couldn't tell you. I don't remember. It's a long time ago, but I do remember that scene. I think I was pretty well already. Pretty highly stoked. Yeah. It was everything else before that. This is. Now it's not a comedy anymore.
Yeah, here's where it turns into a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it is funny. I mean, this scene, of course, is legendary. You know, for the response it got from audiences. I mean, this is pretty much what sold the film.
Yeah, this is the big payoff scene, and this is the scene. Well, a lot of things happened in this scene as we worked it, but.
Hello. My God, look at the rats. Yes. Rats. Not just one anymore. We've come to talk to you.
I mean, did you and Ernie rehearse this out? How did you?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of rehearsing and.
I mean, it's worth noting that there weren't stunt doubles used on this film. I mean, I guess everybody was pretty much game to have.
Well, going out the window, I think.
Well, yeah,
Ernie had a stunt man, but
yeah, but Ernie was cool with having his rats, Yeah. All
this
over.
is the scene that kind of freaked Ernie out a little bit.
Yeah.
He had one up his pant leg. He was not too happy with. Those marshmallow eyes.
Waiting for what? Waiting for us to finish our talk.
Now, I have an iron pole in my hand. That's really a metal pole.
Sit down.
And
Now, Willard.
Yeah, I do love the little saying on his desk how this scene does feel almost kind of biblical in a way. It's almost like just a plague being just unleashed.
Mr. Martin,
that pole is a stainless steel rod.
first, you stole the business from my father. And second, it killed my mother. And third, you're trying to ruin me.
Willard, what are you talking?
You never left me alone for a minute. You made a fool out of me in front of everybody, and now you're trying to steal my house.
Oh, no, no.
I heard you! That's why you tried to fire me. You made me hate
It's just
my
like right at the
This
level.
is the. This is.
I thought a lot about it. Hating myself. Well, I like myself.
That's Stephen King's favorite line. He wrote a whole scene for me years later. I used to hate myself, but I like myself now.
That's Kingdom Hospital.
Yeah, now this pole that I have,
Who the hell is Socrates?
this is an accident that happened.
The best friend I ever had. I don't!
I accidentally hit him in the foot with this pole, and he swings for me, and he missed me, and he goes right through the set.
Tear him up!
No, Willard! No, no! Willard, no! No, Willard! No! Willard!
Yeah, he's a trooper.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to give folks an idea of how big that line was, for years after this came out, this and Ben were brought out as a double feature over and over and over again. And in the newspaper ads, it would just say it was the Tear 'em Up double feature.
Yeah. Yeah, it's followed me around over the years.
I mean, did you ever think of Willard as sort of becoming sort of a villainous character at the end, or what was your take on him as he sort of goes through this process of becoming darker? and
Well,
darker?
in the book, it's about a man completely losing his mind. I mean, whether the rats are real or not, it's all just sort of in his head. He just total mad. It's a man's descent into madness.
I think the book is first person.
Pardon?
The book is all first person.
Yes.
So
Well,
it's
it's Ratman's notebooks. He writes the notes. The rats are in the garden again.
Yes, I mean, the book, he's like an unreliable narrator right from the start, whereas in a movie, that's a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm. He's the descent.
So now, when I watched this movie with friends, people did have different interpretations about why you start killing the rats.
Mm-hmm.
And that is it that they've done what you need them to, and that now this on lock is a possibility for your life, that you just want to start over? Or what do you...
The rats are his complete madness, and he tries to escape it. Finally, he tries to get rid of everything. This is his only way to survive because they've consumed him now, and his soul, and his.
So it's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde type thing. Where
Yeah,
you
it
kill
is.
Mr. Hyde.
It's the unleashed Frankenstein monster, Jekyll and Hyde. It's the classic horror story of, Faust. It's the Faust story. They say there are only 3 real plots. I guess, what was it? Faust and I forget the other 2. Romeo and Juliet.
The Odyssey, I guess. Yeah, but it's interesting how your loyalty just gets screwed around with so much in this film. You know, you don't quite know who you're rooting for by the end of it.
Well, that was the great trick of the movie too. You know, you're with them all the way right up into and you kill the bad guy, and you do root for him, but Ben's the hero now. Yeah. You know, from that shot in the hall in the room where you see Ben's close up hiding there, suddenly Ben's the hero. And Ben is the one that's maligned here. And it becomes that revenge story, too. He's the Frankenstein monster. Mm-hmm. He's the guy left out on the iceberg.
Yep. It's kind of a neat trick how it's like a revenge story within a revenge story, you know?
Yeah, well, that's what's great, what's kind of classic about it is, you know, you can't escape this. And that's what was great about the book, because the book was about how that finally consumes him.
I don't want to go home.
You can come to my house.
And this is the opposite of the Dark Night of the Soul. This is the sunshine is almost ready to shine on Willard and his life. And he finally gets the girl, can be normal.
Well, it's the great tragic story structure.
Yeah.
You know, my life has changed now. Two things did it. And one was a friend I had named Socrates. And you.
What a very nice thing to say, Willard. Where's Chloe?
She's hunting.
Oh.
Did you sort of go to see Sandra's movies that she made after this? Did you keep an eye on her career after this? Like,
We were still friends. I haven't seen her for a couple of years now, but we've remained friends through the years.
So did you see her like sort of evolve as an actress? I mean, some of her roles.
Yeah. Well, she had the whole Clint Eastwood period too that she went through. I didn't see much of her then, but I've seen her over the years, and we've always been good friends. I really like her.
That's great.
She's
kind of underrated. I don't know if you ever saw The Gauntlet, for example, which she made later in the decade.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she's really fantastic in that.
Uh-oh.
Those are the great dead shot.
Here we go. Uh-oh.
No. I think I heard something in the hall. Excuse me.
I love how the scene's almost a little Edgar Allan Poe, too. It's kind of got a Telltale Heart thing going on here.
Yeah, yes.
But I think it's to the film's benefit that they got Daniel Mann to do it, and that he's someone who had no horror film experience, so he actually took it from such an interesting angle. You know, it doesn't really feel like one.
Well, you just make things work moment to moment. That's always what an actor does. Anybody that's making a film never knows what the final deal is going to like. You know, I remember Harrison Ford saying, "I'm not going to look like an idiot, am I? You're going to put things I'm talking to in here." I remember talking to Carrie over the years when they were making Star Wars and had no idea what they were doing or what it was going to be. So often we never know how things are going to turn out. You can read a great script sometime and feel that it's going to work, but you never know. There's so many elements that have to come together for something to work.
When you look back, are there any particular films that you're really happy with, that you're the most satisfied with?
Well, Long Time Companion, I think, is a great film that still holds up, and that was a great script when I read it.
Yeah, I mean, every role in that one was amazing.
Okay, I guess we have to make a deal. You came here for food.
My rat acting again.
Behave yourself and you'll get it. And so will your friends in the cellar. You understand?
I'm not acting with you, the rat says. I think I'll wash up. Well, that's good. I found that in the attic because I thought it was a little strange to have rat poison in the kitchen.
is interesting that you didn't tend to play that many villains in your career, though.
I'm playing them now. It's weird. You never know what you're going to get. X-Men started.
Yeah. I mean, that was a pretty long gap where you pretty much played, complex characters, but no outright bad guys.
Well, I've been lucky. I've really gotten to play everything. Uh-oh, somebody's gone.
Another fun thing about this is you get to play a big death scene, of course, which I think is something that most actors enjoy doing.
Yeah, that's always great. And for this death scene, they've let me wash my hair, too, because they look like I'm all greased down till I start to make it in the real world. And then suddenly, tables are turned. All right, I think we're going to have to just grab this room right here. And if I can get to it, I'll give you a whack. Uh-oh, here they come. Busted the broom here, so...
You get to swing a lot of props around in this movie.
What?
You get to swing a lot of props around in this movie.
Yes.
Like when you were shooting this, were you aware of like which rat shots they were going to be using, or were you surprised when you saw the finished film and how it cut together?
Well, they saved this for the very end of the movie for obvious reasons. Because if I get eaten in real life, I don't get to do any pickup shots. But for this last day, we shot was the end of the movie. We shot the end of the movie.
So, what did that feel like? You're suddenly getting attacked by a lot of your co-stars at the end of the film. That doesn't happen too often.
Well, not the first time. No, we got along pretty well. I get along with everybody.
Did Mo give you any tips about how to deal with it, about how do your death scene with the rats?
With the rats? Yeah, they said, okay, you got peanut butter all over your suit. Lie down on the floor and put a bin around me. And they dumped 600 of them on me.
You'd think it might have been kind of tickly.
It's just one of those experiences I can't really describe. You just had to be there.
I should say that if you saw this on VHS, it was very difficult to actually make.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Had me fixed it.
Triumphant.
On to another career, says Ben.
He earned his close-up.
Just got to meet Michael Jackson next.
Well, this has been Willard, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us, Bruce. What's it like looking back at this all these years later?
It brings back a lot of memories. And one, Alex North, Robert Hauser, yeah.
All the greats here.
Howard Hollander, yes. Certainly, yeah, a lot of friends. A lot that are gone now. But, and Mo DeCesso.
Not just Socrates and Ben, though.
Hmm?
Not just Socrates and Ben. It's all of them.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.